A lot of artists grapple with the idea of being a professional artist. So that got me thinking about what it means to be a professional artist. And then how do you become one? So then I started thinking about, well, how did I know I wanted to be a professional artist and how did I become one? So I'm going to share my story with you and hopefully it will give you some clarity about your own artistic path. Hey everyone, welcome to Whole Artist Mastery. I'm Marianne Mitchell, and today I'm going to share with you how I got to where I am over the last 40 years. And if this is helpful to you, it would be so helpful to me if you would press the little like icon, share a comment about your own story, and subscribe. Okay, so I actually think my 40 years of being a professional artist goes way back before 40 years. And so I'm going to talk in terms of markers. I think the first marker that I knew I was actually an artist was when I was 5. And my parents had a friend over who was a graphic designer, and he went nuts over this splatter painting that I had done in kindergarten. And I remember the scene so clearly, and it was huge brown paper. Maybe many of you did these when you were in kindergarten, or maybe you don't even remember doing what you were doing in kindergarten, but I do because I loved painting. And he said to my parents, "Wow, that's incredible. I wish I could paint like that." And I remember as a 5-year-old thinking, "Wow, what? Wow, why would he be saying that? I mean, he's a grown up. I mean, I think I was saying something like that. I obviously I don't quite exactly remember what was going through my mind, but that set the platform. That was the beginning of the foundation of me knowing I was an artist. So by the time I got to high school, I had really cemented my identity as one of the artists in the class, as opposed to, most of my peers who were really bright academic students. And because of that, I felt really a lack of self-confidence in my smartness. But I knew that I was a good artist, or at least I knew that I was an artist, and I took pride in that. So I think the next real marker was knowing that I wanted to go to art school, that I wanted a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So I went to Washington University in St. Louis, which is a very well-known academic school. So I'm throwing myself yet again into a very academic environment, not really knowing that I really wasn't an academic learner, but I did okay in school. But by the time I was a senior, I really felt like I had to follow my own um, path. I needed to know what inspired me as opposed to following the academic path of painting the model and still life. So coming out of school, I I guess I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Does that sound familiar? I mean, how many kids really know what they want to do? Um, but I also knew that I couldn't be anything other than an artist. And so that set me up for making all of my decisions, whether knowingly or unknowingly, to begin to chart a course of having a life as a professional artist. And as I'm thinking over my autobiography here, I think one of the markers that was huge for me was meeting the artist Jennifer Bartlett, who's a very well-known 21st century painter. She passed away a few years ago. I met her at a party. I was privileged to be at a party where she was, and I remember going up to her and saying, "Oh, how do you become you?" And she said, "Well, the first thing you have to do is paint for about 3 years without even thinking about showing your work, without even thinking about promoting your work." And these are days long before websites and internet marketing and all of that. So And then she said, and have friends who are artists, because artists help each other. They open doors for each other. Now, that's true, although I have experienced the opposite. So I'm hoping that as you listen to my story, you're thinking about, well, I have some artist friends who have helped me. Or are you an artist who's offered to help other artists? So I took that to heart and decided that whatever jobs I took to support myself were going to have to be jobs that were in support of being a professional artist. Despite my, tearing my hair out every so often, or rather often, that how could I be a professional artist? How can I make a living being an artist? And so, when that would really get a hold of me, I would decide to be an interior designer. So I went to start taking interior design classes. And during that time, I was offered my first one-person show through my framer, who knew a guy who was just starting a gallery, and he recommended me to the new gallery owner. And so in the middle of my semester, I went to my teacher and said, I was just offered a one-person show, and I have to follow my heart. That's where my heart is. She said, okay. So I got out of class, had my show, sold half the show for my first real show in a gallery. And, there's a tremendous sense of empowerment in that kind of experience. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. And it made me feel like, okay, maybe I can do this. So, and understand that I'm quite aware of the fact that 99.9% of artists who are creating art and are on a professional path have an alternative source of income, whether it's another job, a spouse or a partner who has money, independently wealthy, some other kind of patron, even the big guys, even artists who are very well known usually have some other source that either got them going, or they're at the point where they're selling their paintings for $1 million and they're good to go, except that, the more you sell your work for, the more you raise your level of lifestyle, the more you need to sell your work, and, it never stops. So I was extremely fortunate to have parents who recognized both, I guess, my talent. And I say, I guess, my talent because it's taken me years to really own that I have talent, but also recognized, unbeknownst to me in my own self, my ambition, which I now understand. But, I was unable to see how ambitious I was, but they recognized it. They believed in me. And so they were able to support me to a point financially so that I could just paint. And again, I recognize that that's a very fortunate position to be in. And sometimes I felt really, guilty is the wrong word, but where I've landed with this particular piece of my trajectory as a professional artist is that we all have lucky breaks and things that have really greatly challenged us. So rather than feeling guilty or ashamed that you have some cushion of some sort, and that your path has been what it has been, or that it's just the opposite, that you had to work for 40 years at some other career and now you want to be a professional artist at 70, which a lot of the mentorship artists that I'm working with are in that category. Whatever your trajectory, it is your trajectory. And it's important for each one of us to make the most of what our path has been built out of. So for me, my path was built with a certain amount of support that allowed me to just paint for a while, which helped me develop my own understanding as opposed to the way you're supposed to paint. It helped me develop my own unique voice. through tremendous challenges, trial and error, ups and downs, great depression, great euphoria, all of the above factored into the building of my path as a professional artist. And every single time I decided this is enough, I can't take it anymore. Even after showing in New York and LA and Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and being collected by some major corporations, it never ends. Like I said earlier, you have to keep going. And at a certain point, I had $500 in my business checking account. And I always prided myself on the fact that I was able to at least pay all of my business expenses. And so with that $500, I thought, I'm done. I have to figure something else out. Got on my bike, took a long bike ride, ended up in a park with a grassy knoll, got off my bike, sat down on the grass. My cell phone rings. Yes, this is now, I'd say, around 2006, 7, 8, somewhere in there. And I answered it, and it was an art consultant, an art advisor who had been following me for a while and said, your work is perfect for this job. And she ended up coming to my studio and buying me out, essentially. Now, what's important about this marker is that it was by this time, there'd been a number of times where I was just about really ready to walk when something would come along and bring me back to my path as a professional artist. And this was the last one when I finally said, actually, it's not the last one, but I'll get to that in a minute. So what are the things that I did to support myself as a professional artist? Outside of the financial realm, I mean, like, how did I get to show in New York? How did I get to show in LA and DC and corporations collecting me and all of that? Well, after about 3 years of just painting, I started to feel this angst, like, all right, I really have to do something about this. So I back in the days before internet, you would buy Art in America, Art News, all of the art periodicals, and look in the back and see what's happening in terms of opportunities for artists. So I found this advertisement for an artist's career consultant. So I looked her up. Long story short, I hired her, and she taught me how to present myself, how to line up my slides. This is back in slide day when you would send a sleeve of slides out into the world to juried shows or whatever. And she taught me how to write an artist statement. And she generally gave me guidance and coaching and support, telling me I was really talented. I didn't believe her. And so, but she finally convinced me to apply for the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation grant. And I thought, why not? I have nothing to lose. I know I won't get it. So just try. Just jump in and try. And I got it. I was one of 10 out of like 2,000 artists who had applied. And I got it. I couldn't believe it. So that's another marker that said to me, okay, I have something. I have to do something with this. And so it started shifting from my inner self saying, I don't know what else to do. I have to paint, so I'm going to do this, and somehow it's going to come together without knowing how it's going to come together and feeling terribly insecure. And this marker began to shift. Oh, this kind of recognition tells me that maybe I do have something to offer the world as an artist. So with that, I was connected through this art advisor, career art advisor, to a new gallery in New York who was opening up. And so he took me on, and I started showing at his gallery. And through that experience, I took the catalog from my one major show at his gallery and sent it out across the country to a lot of different galleries that I thought would appreciate my work. Again, going into the Art in America, it used to be that Art in America, maybe they still do, once a year would come out to the Artist's Guide to Galleries and Collectors in America. So I would comb through that, pick out the galleries that I felt were the best match for me. And so as you listen to this, take note of that because it's really important to do your research first before you just blithely send out any sort of promotional materials that you have. So I got a call on the day that my own daughter was in kindergarten and had gotten really sick, and I had to go and da 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 da. At 6 o'clock at night, I'm making dinner, and the phone rings, and I'm tearing my hair out because life is, a little challenging outside of even making art at this point. And it was this dealer who I'd sent the catalog to and said, well, I'm not the right person for you, but I know somebody who's opening a gallery in Bergamot Station in Santa Monica. Actually, it's Santa Monica, which is in the LA area. And I think she'd really like your work. So long story short, I started showing there. And then a friend of mine said, I'm showing at a gallery in Washington, D.C. I think you'd be a perfect fit. So the picture I'm painting here is that once the ball starts rolling and people see you growing in your visibility, they start saying, hey, I think this would be a good fit for you. And yes, some of them were artists, some of them were people in the business, and some of them were collectors I was starting to build a collectorship. I call it a collectorship. And I always thought, people were buying my work because, well, they were friends of my parents, and they were buying my work because they were friends of my parents. And, I finally have reached the point of understanding they were buying my work. Maybe that was a piece of it, but because they liked it. So I really want you to hear this. It took me such a long time to own my strength and talent as an artist and be able to have that empower me to make decisions that were right for me as opposed to decisions that were made just because I was grasping for the next thing coming down the pike. So I guess that's one of the big markers is that shift to owning my own identity as a successful professional artist. What does that mean? Well, I think it's different for every single person. I would still love to be showing in a museum, to have a major museum show, to have a major New York or European gallery be be showing me, recognize my work on one hand. On the other hand, about 10 years ago, I started this practice of mentoring artists to help them become the artists that they want to be. And some other time I'll tell you how that all came about. But the point here is that it's another marker in me making a shift from being the showing and selling and always looking for the next buyer artist to realizing that I have a wealth of information, expertise, experience, knowledge, wisdom about what it means to be a professional artist, how you become one, and how you decide what kind of artist you want to be. And I pair that with my unique ability, we all have unique abilities, to intuit what's going on with somebody that I'm working with and mirror it back to them and say, this is what's going on for you, and I see it in your work. So that I'm now helping others figure out what their own voice is bring my wealth of experience of creating paintings, making paintings from technical, compositional, medium, color mixing, all of that to the table, and then helping them figure out what kind of artist do you want to be? Do you want to be a professional artist? And if so, what does that mean for you? Because it may be different than what it means for me or for you or everyone who's watching this video. So at this point, I would say that the beginning of my career, was it 2024, was really about 1984 when I came back from, I lived in Japan for a year and painted there and studied. Came back from there really a lost soul. And realized that the only thing I had to really hang on to was I want to be a professional artist. So at that point, I decided, okay, that's it. And it was 1986 that that show opportunity came along, and the rest is history, as they say. So I want to leave you with this, that I know the disease of comparing ourselves to other artists, to other people, is rampant. I certainly have that disease. I compare myself all the time to peers that are way ahead of me now in terms of visibility as a collector, as an artist to be collected. I certainly know that I'm an artist to be collected, but they're, at a much higher echelon in that, where their paintings are selling for $1 million, Mine aren't quite there yet. Um, so yeah, we all compare ourselves to other people. So I want to make sure that you hear my story and take it in as inspiration, as information, as opposed to, well, I didn't go to art school. Well, I didn't have parents who supported me. Well, I didn't have X, Y, and Z. You have what you have. And if you really want to paint and you really want to go somewhere with your art, you're going to figure out how you're going to do it. I'm hoping that my story can serve as inspiration, that you can figure out how to do it any way you want, because I did. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, I'd love to hear your comments, thoughts about what I've said, thoughts about your own story. Please subscribe, like the video, because that helps me do what I'm doing and share it with even more people. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.